Yes.
Like, I feel like I would love to just see, like, you can't possibly dress like that every day. Like, I bet at home she's like in something like I'm wearing, like a comfy like sweatsuit. Like, I bet she doesn't do Helena Bonham Carter every
No,
day.
no.
Maybe to like some like maybe there's some element to it, and that's why the
Sure.
brand became the brand. But like you've seen her on red carpets, right? Like, and anybody who doesn't know who Helena Bonham Carter is, shame on you. She's fantastic, but she's the wife of Tim Burton, and she's basically done like almost every film that Tim Burton has ever done. Like, she's had a part in it, but like, and her and Johnny Depp have been in a lot of movies together because Johnny Depp also being another like big favorite of Tim Burton's. But like, she was in Fight Club. She did Sweeney
She's
Todd.
she's been in
She
period pieces too.
tons of period pieces,
Yeah.
tons. She did Ocean's 8. But if you've seen her on in interviews on red carpets, she has a look. Her hair
Yeah,
is
baby.
usually looking like a rat's nest, like an artfully sculptured rat's nest. And her clothing usually is like kind of this like weird modern periody type of thing, lots of ruffles, lots of layers, over
Yes,
maybe
yes,
like oversized. Um,
yes.
that's the image, right?
There's an interview of Marilyn Monroe, and they've used it a few times in films too. So if anyone's watched any of the documentaries on her, she's walking down the street having an interview with a reporter, and at some point she asked the reporter, "Do you want her to come out?" And he's like, "Who?" And she's like, "Marilyn." And she says, and she just turned her face. And when she turned around, people just rushed. And he was like, "What the fuck just happened?" And she just called her in. And that is what the actors end up ultimately doing. Like she took it to the extreme. Like she created this whole other persona, right? And it was, Norma Jean was over here, and then there was Marilyn Monroe. And that's very dangerous for a human to do.
Yes. Yeah, you're essentially making this like faux form of dissociative disorder for
I guess.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like where you have multiple personalities. It's not like the true form, because like a true DID is born out of trauma. I'm not saying that she had a mental illness, but I'm saying like you're essentially creating another personality, another
Yeah.
individual that's
For
living
the
inside of
camera.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the camera. And it becomes a brand, and they make a lot of money doing that because they build marketing around it. So now you've
Yeah.
got brands working with you like, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Dior, that just, want you to carry their stuff and do photo shoots and invite you to go see their runway shows. You've got ad campaigns with, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, not anymore so much because now I think that's more geared towards a different marketing group. But think about it,
Yeah,
in the
that
past,
that
that's,
I feel like food
yeah,
food and drink I feel like tends to be more towards like athletes.
they, yep,
That whereas like
yeah,
fashion and just
jewelry,
fashion in
high-end
general,
jewelry.
whether that be like perfumes, shoes, handbags, clothing, that tends to be more towards actors and
Makeup.
actresses.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And so it's a whole campaign. Like you work, I mean, the reason why, the actors have a manager, a PR person, all of these people is because they're all working on this image that is decided upon, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so and everything is, and that is part of the reason why when an actor's like, "No, I don't want to play these kinds of roles anymore," that they all talk about it being a challenge. And it's because they've built this campaign that represents this dollar amount for all of these people that now this actor wants to put in jeopardy,
Um,
because if the audience falls out of love with the branding because you chose to go off script with this
yeah.
new direction, right? And think about it. After an actor, this doesn't happen as much anymore, I've noticed. Like, this is where the industry is really, really changing, because clickbait is now what, every 45 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Back in the day, if you watched an actor's career carefully prior to a film, there's always like a makeover that happens right after a film that kind of is still in line with the character that they played, right? Because they don't want to like just, they're still making money off the residuals of that film, so they don't want to touch
Yeah.
that. But like there is this like makeover that takes place right after, because it's leading you into whatever their next project is. It's all strategy, and it's all
Yeah.
done through a team. That nothing is coincidental for these people. And so, you know, and it takes a while for, I think, the individual to fully have control over that. You don't really get that at the beginning, which is why it's such a challenging existence for these people, right? Because they're finally committed to being authentic, right? And going into
Yeah.
this medium. And now you're being told, well, this is who we're going to present to the world. And this is how
Yeah.
we're going to do it. So, and that's
So
why I
it's
haven't done it in so long.
yeah, I mean, like you said, so much of the industry is changing. I mean,
Yes.
at one point, 100 years ago, it was all silent film.
Yeah.
So, and it was a very limited number of individuals who were basically in the game. Like I think like basically every film had the same people in it because acting wasn't like I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that like acting and being on stage and stuff was always a thing. I think it was possibly always popular, but it's changed so much. I mean, even 200 years ago on stage, the lights didn't go down. There was no like the house lights went down. You
Mm-hmm.
literally sat in a room where all the lights were on. There was basically like only like the floor seating and there was like maybe like 20 or 30 people in the room. But those 20 or 30 people that were sitting watching said performance weren't just watching the performance, they were freaking talking. Like they were talking, they were like the actors on stage would be like saying their lines, and somebody in the audience would
Mm-hmm.
be like, such poetry.
Or
Like,
they would throw things at them.
or they would throw things if they didn't like the performance or they didn't feel like it was, good enough or whatever. And, 200 years later, and the house lights go down, everybody's expected to be quiet. We have rules for when we clap and when, and people get upset, like other people get upset if you as an audience member find something funny. So if it's not a collective laugh, some people, in the audience might be like, oh, you're being loud. Like, like how dare you find that funny when I don't find that funny, when everybody else doesn't find that funny, you know? Um, and there's a much more significant distance, right? Like usually, you might have a pit where like your orchestras, if there's
Right.
music that's associated or whatever. So there's some significant different or distance between the actual stage and the people.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it is. And like you said, adding on now that component of money and that the only play actors now are not only making money off of the performance, they're making money off of all of the other brands that are now associated with them as a brand.
Yeah.
So it's a very different dynamic. It's not all about the art, even though if you talk to the artist, they're going to try to say, I'm just in it for the acting. I'm just trying to be here for this. except for the rest of the world is like, no, I want to know what cereal you eat because I want to eat that cereal. So are you
Yeah,
for Captain Crunch or are you for Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
yeah.
Like, you
Well,
know,
and here's the thing, like I think that a lot of them don't mind having conversations. It's just that it's the reporter's job to make sure that their article gets click throughs. And so if the actor doesn't say anything that makes headlines,
yeah,
they're gonna have to invent it because it's their job. And the
yeah,
actors know it. And you have to make an agreement where you're like, I don't care what the hell they write or what the hell they say. And you can make a choice not to be interviewed. Like there's actors that will not promote their films and they write it into their contracts. They don't make as much, right?
you're
Like
right.
they don't make as much. They don't get the deals with the big brands. You know, Jodie Foster has never done a whole lot of promotion for anything that she does or has done. She's done a few interviews, a few,
Yeah.
but let's be honest, she doesn't go out there and
No.
promote her work the
Yeah.
way that the vast majority. And I am positive that she doesn't get paid the way that the other ones do because
Right.
it's like this is how much for the acting, this is how much for this is how much for that, and if you want to add all of these, there's look, it's this big beautiful number. It's the actor's choice
Yeah.
how deep into the rabbit hole they choose to go. And you
Yeah.
know, a lot of them get tantalized with that number because it's a really beautiful number. I'm sure.
Right.
So where the industry is also changing that aspect is, yes, you still have the big box studios, but what the beauty of what's happening now is like these beautiful little phones. I can't wait. I'm gonna go to Apple and learn more about what these things are capable. I just got the 17. I'm so excited. It's like I was with a friend who had one just a little bit less because mine was like ancient. I think it was an 11, and we put our phones next to each other and the crispness on. I was like, and the videographer that's going to be shooting my scene on Saturday shot a commercial. She got paid for this commercial all on the iPhone 17, the whole
Wow.
commercial. And I'm like, damn. So what's happening now because of this kind of technology is there are all these independent films that are being made out there with not as much money as the big box office. But because the technology is so good on these,
Yeah.
they can qualify to make it into the film festivals. And if they do well in the film festivals, what these movies can end up making is very, very different. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the film does get picked up by a studio and does get picked up to get a screening. I mean, sometimes they'll start small, but then if that does well, and all of a sudden, these small films, like the movie I'm thinking of is Mickey, whatever, Honora, I believe is what it was called.
There is a movie called Honora. I've never actually seen it. It was up for Oscars last year
Yes,
or this
yes.
year, I guess
It won
technically.
an Oscar. That was a low
Yeah.
budget film. That was not like a major, it got picked up. It got picked up at the
Yeah,
festival.
eventually. Yeah, it seemed
Yeah.
like a really late entry. Like I remember a lot of the films in the last Oscar cycle felt quite like almost out of the blue a little bit.
Yes.
Where like I'm like, what is this Honora? What is this? Like even like Amelia Perez, which from what I have seen, I feel like does not deserve that level of like
Oh,
notoriety that it
really?
got. But I have not actually seen the full thing, but just from like the clips I've seen. But that being said, though, it kind of felt like a lot of the films like those kind of came out of nowhere. They were just randomly at some, they were at TIFF or they were at, whatever, BAFTA and like came out of nowhere and all of a sudden some like studio picked it up
Yep.
real late.
Yeah, yeah. So there are now these incredible opportunities, which is why we're getting all these, why there's so many more actors now. Like there's just that we're aware of that are that
Yeah.
that are actually, we're seeing them on the screen. It's not just, so it's opening so many doors like for these types of opportunities. And so because of that, like if you go on to these sites to look up films and shows and stuff that are being shot, there are hundreds, hundreds of things being done, hundreds upon hundreds every single day, new stuff coming up. And so it is more work in the sense that like you got to look it up and see if it's worthy, see if if they've done anything else, if the script is any good. Like we really have to dig in and to what you want to audition for, but it's opened so many more opportunities out there for people to get an opportunity to perform. Forget become famous, because if that's the end goal, dude, this is not like, you don't understand what you're getting yourself into. Like it's just to be able to do your art, right? um because if the fame is what you want, like go be a politician. Like
Yeah,
sorry.
there's other ways in which to get famous. Um, we're gonna end up having a side conversation, you and I, about finding like the fame points in one's natal chart.
Oh,
Like there's things that mark whether or not you will become famous or become rich in your natal chart.
okay.
And I looked up yours. I have your natal chart saved on my Astro. So when did I looked it up? And I know what they are, so I'm gonna tell you. So like I think that that's interesting, and I wonder about like I wonder about that of like how many people who are currently famous and or rich, like did they look it up? Did they look it up? And did they know
Oh
that like
shit.
if they just, had enough luck, worked hard enough, that it was already written in the stars for them?
Interesting. I am curious. I will say that I do find that most actors have, bringing it back to spirituality, have some sort of a spiritual practice. It's really important, because you are playing with emotions, and that can be some serious and heavy shit sometimes, even if it's a funny character, because sometimes your funny character does some fucked up shit to be funny, right? Or
Yeah.
says some fucked up shit to be funny, right?
Yeah. Or even
Because
and especially the darker characters, the
yeah,
ones that are like they're doing some pretty nasty things. Do you I'm curious for you because you are an intuitive. You have studied and certified to be an intuitive. You are a Reiki master. You are an energetic channeler. Like there's so many different aspects of intuition that you work with and know and use in your own life as well as for others. Do you feel like more actors and actresses need intuitive guidance, as in like need an energy worker on retainer, the same way that they may have a therapist on retainer, so that when they do any role, but maybe some of those tougher roles, either like traumatized roles or evil roles, if we want to like put that in quotations, because you know we could definitely have that conversation about like how actors have to not necessarily go in thinking that their character is evil, because that somehow like creates a barrier to the fullness of what they're portraying on stage or on screen. But
yeah,
like, do you think that that's something that, especially now in 2025 and moving forward, do you feel like that's a job that an actor needs to like look into like having somebody on their team, like here's my intuitive on my team to like
yeah,
help them clear and
absolutely.
cleanse and help them ground and
I think that the better ones and the ones that have stuck around do. Like, yeah.
seriously,
Oh,
like you
yeah.
think like they have somebody on their team that does that? Oh my god, I wonder, I probably would like be so good as
Oh,
that
oh,
job.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So there's a bunch of actors that do transcendental meditation,
Hmm.
um, that are into that. Madonna just came out that she's been studying the Kabbalah for a bajillion years, with her spiritual teacher. Like there's a lot of actors that will tell you that they have to have their spiritual practice, their rituals to help them. I mean, Nicole Kidman admitted that, after the really rough scene in Big Little Lies, that she got to the hotel, she was really, really still up there in the character, I guess, and she couldn't open the door to her hotel room. It was made of glass. She got a rock and broke the door to get in. Like she needed to, she needed to rest. She needed to get out of that energy, and she was exhausted. And she's like, I fucking broke the door with a rock. Like, who does that shit? That's not me. Like, but like it was an intense scene that, she was shooting at Big Little Lies. Like, she was being abused by her husband. So it was an intense scene. It was that, intense one. And yeah, she had, so I 100%, like any of them that have been doing this for a long time, are doing some sort of energetic work, because otherwise, I mean, for sure, when I was a teenager and I was starting off, like now I'm like, I was a total rebel without a cause, but it was all the, havoc of the characters I was playing that I didn't know how to, you know,
Yeah, how to clear out from.
no,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so, acting is such an interesting thing for me of like, I, and I don't know, I just, you brought it up before about how there are a lot of actors, almost all of them. I don't, and in fact, now that I think about it, I'm trying to think if there's a single actor interview that I've ever heard where, or roundtable discussion that I've ever watched where the actors sitting there said, I wanted to do it because I love being in the spotlight. I love people. I love storytelling. I love bringing stories to life, but I love being in the spotlight. I love people watching me. I love the whole thing. That this whole thing. No. I don't know of a single person after years of watching thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, not a single one of them has said that. They've all said, I am a odd duckling. I don't want people looking at me. It's all about telling the story. I just want to tell stories. That's all that there is. It's a way for me to better understand my oddness is by understanding my oddness through somebody else's oddness. And so, is it any wonder how, like, these individuals are like, I can't hold on to a relationship. I can't, like, marriage eludes me. I might get married 3 or 4 times, but I'm also getting divorced that many times. I struggle with like letting go of the character sometimes. Sometimes I have to go method. Sometimes like can't. They seem like they're such in flux, whereas to me I'm like, wouldn't wouldn't acting be so much better if it was like people like me who was doing it, because I actually like that, whereas I'm actually not. I've never acted. I've never done it. I have no like drive to like go online and be like, what roles should I like try out for? Should I go and get a headshot and like start doing it? Like, I have no drive to do that, which I think is so fascinating because I feel like I would be the one that'd be like, yeah, okay, like first day on set, I have to get naked. Okay, let's do this. I'm not having any qualms about that. I'm like, okay, and your name is? Great. Okay, let's do this. Oh, you got hard in a scene? Fine, that's the work. Like, you're portraying this story. The actor is supposed, or the character is in this intimate moment. Is it any wonder that your body is having a physical reaction to my body? No. Like, whereas what you've described is, no, I need to, like, let me go and like have this conversation with this person, make sure they don't get freaked out. Like, In my mind, I'm like, you're doing a job. Like, of course. To me,
Yeah.
it's like almost a no-brainer. But once
Yeah, but
again,
there
I'm also the person that I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
but you also we have to go back to, but you're doing a job with other humans. You know, like if you needed to, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of nursing, like something that you have to do in tandem with your partner, you're going to talk about it, you know, like,
No, actually, we don't.
well,
No, we're trained. We're trained. Like so for example, like somebody comes in and their heart's not beating. There is very little conversation in that room. When I walk into the room and things are already in process, I look around and I clock who's on what job and I know immediately where I need to step in. I don't need to ask what needs to be done. I look around and I know where I belong based off of what I've been trained to do and what I feel comfortable with doing. So
yeah.
there is very little talking. But in the scene, not a single and before the scene, nobody is talking. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like a lot of people think the same way that you do. That in medicine that there's a lot of talking. There's actually very little talking
Right.
because we know the job and we know that the rest of the team knows the job and we know the outcome. Like we've been prepped for that. And that's where I think it's really interesting because I can understand why you would need to have some level of conversation on set because you
You
don't,
have to trust the other actor, and you don't
yeah,
necessarily know them if you don't have a conversation with them before. Scripts are open for interpretation because there's
that's
so
true.
many ways the
Yes.
scene can go. So many
Yeah.
ways. You can find that like the most crucial part is this particular line because of your sets of experiences, where I'm like,
Mm.
oh wow, that's interesting that you found it there. For me, it's here, and this is why, you know, and it's from my set of experiences and potentially my perspective in the way that I read the script versus the way that the other person read the script and their interpretation. And like I said, that happens, you know. I think that's also like why in auditions they do like chemistry checks that I don't even think they call that anymore because now that's not
Yeah.
politically correct or whatever, but it's
Yeah.
important.
But yeah, I mean they have like their chemistry reads. Like
Yeah,
I've
because
heard actors say that use that term of like, they thought that these two people were going to be the actors, the lead actors, so we brought them both into chemistry read and see if they like get along and see if they have, that spark.
je ne sais quoi. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that is so crucial. And like you can't define it, right? You like either are on the same level as your scene partner or you're not, and you're coming at it from different places. And you can either collaborate and be like, okay, we're gonna come at this from different places, and then we're gonna meet here on this, or it's not gonna work because you know you're just both over in different, and then there's no chemistry as would be called chemistry. And it's honestly, it's not even that there is or isn't chemistry because like you could see, that's why you could see two actors that are married together on screen and you're like, how they don't look like they like each other, how are they
Yeah.
together in real life? Like there's nothing on the screen. And it's not that, it's that they're coming at the roles from different perspectives and they never probably were like, hey, maybe we should like look at it this way or meet in the middle on this, because otherwise it looks weird that you're coming from here and I'm coming from here, and it's not. And that's a director that wasn't like, you guys are doing this and it's not working, you know what I mean?
That was literally what I was just thinking. I was like, in that event, like, I feel like when I watch a movie that I would deem as bad, I would say that it has very little to do with the actors and everything to do with the director. The director was the one that was trash in that moment because how do
Yeah.
you watch the dailies? I don't even care if you're in time crunched. Like, you can't possibly look at that and be like, yep, all right, and moving on. Like and this is where I'm like, this is where I feel like as a medium, acting and like creating story is it is about communication. Absolutely. It is about having this internal like understanding of the character, but there's so much prep that you hear about. And there there is so much before getting in front of the camera where you're like, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. And I think that's where like when we hear about acting as a job, right? I feel like there has been some weird breakdown in the development of that as a career, as a job that other industries don't tackle. There's so many different styles of how to act. Like there's so many different like I don't even know what do they call it? Like
Technique
theories?
to,
Techniques, thank you. There's so many
yeah,
different techniques to acting. So
yeah.
you might have somebody who was trained in the like, I don't even know. Give me a couple of techniques. I don't know.
So there's Method, there's Meisner, there's Stanislavski.
So
Those
even
are the
with
main ones.
those,
Yeah, those are the
so
main ones.
you could
I think
have a character or a person who's been trained in method and a character who's been trained in Stanislavski. Is that
Stanislavski, Stanislavski, and
and
Meisner like
Meisner?
modernized that. So
Yeah.
you can go with
So,
Meisner.
one that's method, one that's trained in Meisner, and I can completely understand what you say when you say they're coming at this from two very different perspectives. And yet, the director, why isn't it the director's job beforehand to be like, okay, I need to know how you were trained. I need to know how you were trained so that they understand then where the breakdown could potentially happen between those two individuals as they're portraying their characters. Do they not
I
do that?
I don't know. I want to say that the probably some of the great ones do, right? Some of the bigger ones pay attention to those things, but you also have to remember not every director has been an actor. So
Well, and maybe I need to get a director on here to be like, so how are you trained? Like when you go to school to be a director, like do
it's a
you
very
not like learn about these different ways and how to like how different people will tell story? Like, is it like it feels like this is the breakdown that I'm talking about. I think that this is why the acting industry is kind of fucked up because you've got all these different ways that people are like thinking about things and nobody is trained in like how another thing is trained. So like
yeah, yeah, it's all very different. So a director is the overarching picture, right? Like he is telling this overarching story, right? And he is putting together these pieces that, by the way, aren't being shot in order, rarely, like
right.
it's it all
Yeah.
depends on when they can get the locations and when they can, all
Right.
the schedules kind of all over the place. So they have to piece, things together. And so
Mhm.
in my opinion, they're trained on, focusing on making sure they get all of these shots that they need to get, these touch points that they need to
To
get to
tell
tell
the
this
story.
story. And so it's very different because the actors have to get you there. You need other people to do that story, but you're not the one doing it. And if a director has never acted before, they don't necessarily know how to get the actor there.
Mm.
They know the outcome that they want, but because they've never studied the medium themselves, they have a really hard time explaining what it is that they are trying to get them to portray, almost because they
Yeah.
haven't had to go through that character development themselves. And so, like, a lot of actors will say that the best directors are the ones that have acted because
Right.
they know the medium, they know what the character needs, they know what kind of direction to give that will help the actor get there. Where some
Right.
directors don't because they haven't done it themselves. So they have a
It's so
harder time.
fascinating to me. This is so like I can just my Virgo brain is like is tearing this industry apart right now. Of like, okay, I can now see all the problems like so clearly. And it's like, and I could fix them. I'm like, I can fix them. Um, and it also just like brings me back to like why I know that you and I wanted to have this conversation. I'm number one, I'm just so grateful that you're willing to like basically teach me about the industry because I've loved the end products for so long. Like it's literally like I feel like movies and TV and music and books, they've all gotten me through the hardest times of my life. Like any time that I've had a hard time, getting out of my life and into somebody else's life and has been so helpful to me because in some cases it provided me with the distance I needed out of my own life and out of my own problems in order to then be able to come back into my life and say, okay, that was a great break. And now that I've had some distance, I can now deal with whatever is in front of me. And I can do it in a way that's going to not make me blow up my own life. But in other cases, it was me being able to go into somebody else's life, into a different character's life, and watch how they dealt with the problems of their life and realize, oh, so we've got a similar problem. This is how they dealt with it, and this was the outcome. So I let me try to bring that a little bit into my life. Maybe let me try to communicate in the way that they just communicated. And that's what helped me be able to get through my tough time because that it was so similar that I ended up having a similar result. You know, the
Yeah.
problem was able to go away. And so it saved me in so much. But there was this whole blank space where I didn't understand all of the stuff leading up to that final project, that final outcome. And so I'm like so grateful that I now like have all of this like background information. But I know that you and I both came into this conversation really because we also really wanted to talk about not just the ins and outs of the industry itself and of how you do the thing, but that whole idea of you have to have this in touchness with something otherworldly in order to do the job and to create the projects. And what it means to have that ability, those intuitive abilities of connecting with the otherworldly, of connecting with yourself, of connecting with your energy. And it just adds this extra layer of complexity to something that doesn't have any standardization across the board. I think that's the one thing that we have laid firm. There is no standardization to this industry at all. And it's no wonder why some people get so fucked up over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And add the layer of of the fame that we mentioned, it can get really dicey. I think that that's one of the things that I feared the most as I was going into adulthood and about to graduate college. It was like, wait a minute, do I want to be famous? Do I want everyone, I'm a pretty private person, so do I want the world to, know about my life? And at that time, the answer very much was no, I don't, and also no to this notion that um, these 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 characters that I was going to be playing, whether I like them or not, you know, um, was I going to be able to shake the energy? And at that time, the answer was also no. And so I think that, the universe always guides us perfectly. Like I needed to go through all of this so that I could go back to my art because now I'm not scared of the characters that I might carry. Now I know that I can release the energy. Now there's a very fine distinct I'm able to distinguish my energy versus other energy always.
Yes.
I know when I'm carrying something that doesn't belong to me. Sometimes it's harder to shake, as we've discussed, but but I know, versus before I was wearing so much. It was like when jewelry is all knotted up.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think that there was a period there, where I had played so many characters between high school and college. And, no one taught me how to remove the energy. I didn't have Palo Santo in 1999. Like, come on,
Right.
like this is the early 2000s, guys. I'm aging myself, but it is what it is. And I had to let it go almost because it was eating away at me and I didn't know why, like my life was pretty nice for the most part. And it led me to like, hit a point where it was like, okay, enough playing. I have to
Mm.
become an adult now. And acting was playing because it was my art. So I had fun doing it, right?
Yeah.
But the world was showing me that like, it was time to grow up, quote unquote, right? I was graduating from college. I had debt from college. I had things that needed, to be paid for, real bills that were really piling up. And moving to LA at that point wasn't even a possibility. Moving to LA or New York at that time really wasn't in the cards for me. I needed to save up to be able to do that, but I still had to pay off debt. And all of these realities started to hit me real fast across the face. And it was like, huh, maybe this isn't for me,
Mm.
because it was very heavy. It was very heavy. And it wasn't just the characters, right? Because when you're carrying all of that emotion, you're living it too. So it's influencing your personal experience, this energy from the characters that you're, playing, um, is also influencing you, the person, at this point, right? And so there was a lot of shit that went on in those 20s of my life where I was like, what, you know? Um, and I can't tell you that there was a very specific breaking point for me where I somehow unshackled some of it. Because to be honest, I probably didn't unshackle it until I started my Reiki practice in my mid 30s, right? So that's like a lot of years of carrying these characters, these um, personas, these programs that we tell ourselves that are us, but really it's all of these energies that we didn't know how to let go of. And it took me a really long time to hindsight. It's 2020, right? You look back and you're like, oh, no, okay. But I think that it made sense that this was my plan because now there isn't that intimidation of, well, I wouldn't want to do that really dark character because I wouldn't know how to shake it. Or I'm too scared to be in that uncomfortable confrontation of a conversation because it's really sticky and I don't want that in my personal life. So how am I going to play that character and not bring it to my personal life, right? I don't I don't have that fear anymore. Like I know that I can lay it all out. It's almost like I'm going to compare it now to like kickboxing because you can take the emotion that is bothering you and punch it out on the bag and leave it there and let the bag have it, right? You can release that energy by hitting the bag and saying, I'm letting this go. I don't want this anymore. It's not the energy I want to carry. Frustrations, anger, sadness, whatever. Um, Similarly, in acting, I can touch those sticky, uncomfortable conversations that I don't need to have in my life, but I can know what that feels like by letting myself go there in said character, um, and leave it there.
Right.
And it's not for me per se in the sense that like, oh, I needed to say those things that I can't say to so and so I'm going to say it to this character per se. But I also feel like there's another level of it that it's also for whoever gets to see that needed to hear me say it
Yeah. Yeah.
because they can't.
Yes. I think it's one of the things that makes it such a beautiful art form because, like you were saying, being able to experience something that you may never experience is in a lot of ways healing, and it's so interesting and it's so fascinating. And I can very much understand why people would say or do say, you know what, I just want to do the work. I just want to tell the story. Because to them, they could just be thinking, you know what, I'm never gonna murder somebody ever in my life. And I'm just very much interested in what emotion would it take to get there, to get to that place? What would have to happen for somebody in order for them to get to that place? And what does it feel like when it happens? That's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. I think that's also why like the Marvel comics, the hero roles are so like why actors like really want that because
Yeah.
oh my God, I get to play this
Right.
like amazing like
Control weather? Like, yeah.
exactly, exactly. Where do I sign up? I get to fly? What?
It makes
So
complete sense.
yeah, I think that that's the beauty of the medium, but it is in that desire to do that. And I think that that's why so many of them will go through whatever just to be able to do it because they can't do it in their real life. Like they would never do these things in their real life. Like that's not their real personality, but they're curious.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for doing this and explaining it all, investigating it all. I could literally talk about this for forever. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now you need to tell me my natal chart thing. I'm so
Yes,
curious.
yes, we'll
I
do
think
that.
I
We'll do
already
that.
know. I think I already know. I think I
Do
already
that.
know. But let's see if you confirm it.
Right? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Breath of Life Conversations. Check out the show notes below and see all of the different amazing ways that you can follow Miss Christina. And we will see you next time on the next Breath of Life Conversations. Bye, y'all.
Bye.